2 of Closing Time with Jeff West, a local real estate agent in St. Thomas, Ontario with Street City Realty, where we talk all about real estate locally. And today, I'm super excited. We have a guest. If you have been in real estate for the last 25 years, 30 years, you will know the name Costa Poulopoulos. Costa has been a realtor since 1987, and he was past president of the London St. Thomas Realtors Association. He's been on the board of the Ontario Real Estate Association, the Canadian Real Estate Association, and has won numerous awards. He got Outstanding Achievement Award for his contribution to the real estate profession in Southwestern Ontario and his local real estate association in 2000 and again in 2008. Costa speaks 3 languages, and his creative marketing ideas and materials are used in training classes around the province. Welcome, Costa.
Wow, well, Jeff, thank you. I didn't expect that kind of an intro. I'd like to be known as Costa. He's a really nice guy, kind of thing. So there you go.
And he's a hugger. And he's a hugger.
That's right.
I wondered if you wanted to start off and kind of just talk about your role as the broker of record and as kind of your roles as you moved forward in your career.
Yeah, so listen, it's been a wonderful career. It's still going. It's ongoing. As you mentioned, 1987 is when I got licensed, so 39 years ago. In 2008, my lovely wife and business partner and I decided that we were going to open up our own brokerage. That's after 16 years of trading with 3 large franchise company, different brands, being always in the top 3 of their organizations of 200 agents, 250 agents. No assistants, just Mary and I, and then we decided, hey, listen, you know what? Here's my take on life. Philosophically, I have this philosophy from the day you're born until the day that you die. We don't know this date, but open as many doors as you can in life. Never close them. You don't have to go through them all. So philosophically, that's my outlook. And of course, I have Mary, who not only buys into that philosophy, but she doesn't only look in the door. She goes in the room and starts moving around furniture and scares the crap out of me. But the reality is, that's how we ended up starting a brokerage of our own. Started with 2 people, just Mary and I, and organically grew. No recruiting campaigns out to agents. It's over the course of working in the profession for so many years, working with great realtors. Once we turned on the lights that we were open for business, people started coming in. So I got to tell you, from May of 2008, which was a recession year for those of you that have been around in 2008, if you remember that, by December, we had 55 agents. A full year later, we were over 120 agents. So it's been a good ride, and I don't even know if I answered your question, but from there I got into, organized real estate and all the things that you mentioned about being president of the National Association, Provincial Association, and broker of record of Street City as founding owners. And I've just recently been afforded an opportunity to become the interim broker of record for our sister company in Toronto, Right at Home Realty, which has over 6,200 agents and is the largest independent brokerage in Canada with that many agents. So really excited about the next step as well.
So how have you seen the real estate industry evolve over the years?
Jeff, that's a great question. And, a lot of people ask that. It's like, oh my God, isn't it different from when you started in 87? The reality is the wheel is round. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. It works beautifully. You know what? This is a people business, and that's what I tell everybody. And it doesn't matter how much technology gets ahead of this, and technology is a wonderful tool. AI coming, it's leaps and bounds, light years ahead, wonderful tool. But the reality is, it's a people business, and people still want to connect with somebody that's going to make sense of all the data that's so readily available. I mean, here's one thing that we've been saying. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. Once somebody knows that I care about their situation, their new addition to the family, unfortunately, the death of the family, a new job, a loss of a job, whatever the motivation is for people to look to buy or sell real estate, they need to know that the person that they're talking to, the realtor they're speaking to, really cares. Other than that, it's like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 whatever you're talking about. So it's a people business. It has always been a people business, and it will always be a people business. So of course, things are going to change. Technologies are going to change. Things may move at a faster pace, but the crux of it, that's why I firmly believe realtors will always be at the center of a transaction. It might take a different form, but they'll always be involved to help consumers navigate through this process.
Yeah, for sure. And it is one of the things I like most about real estate is the people part of it. And I think, coming from a teaching background and working with children for so many years, it was something I really like. It's about, I hate to say it, it's about the only thing I miss about teaching is the kids and the relationship building. But I'm in a different profession now where I get to build, long-term relationships with people and, hopefully sell their homes over the years for them. And yeah, it's a thing I certainly like the most.
And Jeff, and I know you'll be in it as long as I am, this is the beauty of it. You'll be selling to their kids and maybe their grandkids, depending on how long you're going to be. Yeah. Because it is a people business, and it's those connections, and clients and consumers become lifelong friends, and I mean that. Some of our best friends in our lives have come through the connections we made in real estate. And I know you have the same philosophical view, and that's the way you treat your business, which is attributable to why you're so successful.
Well, in my it's funny, 10 years in real estate now, and I sold a house a couple years ago actually to a former grade 4 student. So it's the relationships are important and lifelong for sure. Are there things that you think the public misunderstands about the real estate market? You know what? That's a great question as well. And I don't know. Sometimes there's misconceptions of how it works. Sometimes we have relationships with people and they trust us implicitly and they know that we care about them. And, sometimes these clients or consumers don't want to bother us and they figure, oh, you know what? I'm just going to, walk around and let you know when I'm interested. And, I won't waste your time because I respect you. The reality of it is, and this is one thing that we need to educate consumers more of, is how does real estate work in the organized world of real estate? I mean, there's a listing side, there's a buyer side, and ideally, and now with the legislation has changed since 2023 under the Trust and Real Estate Services Act, where we designate specific agents that represent a client's best interest. So even though you and I could be in the same brokerage and the same brand, in the past, it used to be, everybody under the Street City umbrella had to work for the client that you were working with. You may not even have known them, or I may have not known your client, but by default, I was actually working for their interests. And they changed the legislation to give a clear, and I'm going to give a big shout out to the regulator for this. They're trying to make things easier for the consumers. And I mean, the regulator, the Real Estate Council of Ontario's mandate is consumer confidence and consumer trust in the real estate profession and the industry, and so they've really done a great job in clarifying in simple, plain language who works for whom, how does real estate work, representation, and so it comes back down to that. I mean, that part's okay, and I think that's one thing consumers need to know is how does it work. Like, I know you may want to go out and do some searching on your own, but listen, engage my services. That's what I'm here for. I will represent you. You explain how representation works. Fiduciary duty is to promote and protect the client's interest. And you're not taxing my time. Let me work hard for you and explain the process and how it works. And I know there's a listing side and there's a buyer side, but the reality of it is the expertise of realtors, when you get realtors that know what they're doing, it doesn't matter if you work for the seller on the listing side or I work for the buyer. If we're not putting a deal together, nobody's working tonight. And the buyer and our clients aren't happy. So there's a lot of stuff in there when you're dealing with true professionals, helping consumers navigate through the process, full transparency in what's supposed to happen, how it happens, full disclosure. And I know that we pride ourselves on that, and you're a perfect example of how you take that on in a brokerage and how you deal with your clients. Well, Costa, it's when I meet with my clients, it's the first conversation I have, and it's funny that people didn't know, and people who have bought and sold many houses, they did not know that when they purchased a property through a listing agent, that agent a lot of the times was not representing them. They had no idea. Right. And I think unfortunately during COVID, a lot of buyers were really taken advantage of. And I think this change in legislation is huge. And I think it's a really good thing that was done.
Well, sure. I just want to piggyback on that because you're 100% correct. The true professionals that that understand how it's supposed to work about full disclosure and transparency have embraced the new legislation because it just makes it so much more clear. So I don't think that there's any pushback from realtors that are transacting out in the field, and those are the ones that have embraced this, and it's helped the consumers as well for sure.
Yeah. Okay, Costa, I'm going to ask you a question that I get asked every day.
Sure.
What do you think about the current state of the market?
That is honestly, I love to tell my take on this thing. And I know that, look, first of all, even though we're local in our markets, we're globally connected. So you know what? We're local, but we're global. We get that. Geopolitically, what's happening in the world around the globe is going to affect what's happening in London and St. Thomas and England. It doesn't matter where we are, because that's the impact of how connected we are globally. So what I think is going to happen, here's what I'm thinking. Look, right now, the Bank of Canada rate just left the rates where they are, which is great for the month of April, 2.25. That is historically really low. Save and except for the pandemic, which was at 0.25, which we'll probably never ever see again, unless another pandemic or something catastrophic happens. Right now, the interest rates, which is a big factor in what people are, I'm talking on the buying side now. Let's just look at the buying side. We'll talk on the listing side. It's a huge opportunity for buyers. And for the buyers that have pretty stable employment, I don't know what field they're in, healthcare, educators, whatever, where somebody has some security in their position. Buyers today can purchase properties, and it depends on the market, so don't hold me to exactly the market, but prices of 2019, some cases 2018, in Toronto and the GTA, 2017 prices. So I look at that and I think, okay, let's think about this. So you've got a great job. You're you're a 29, 28-year-old professional. You're in a position now that you can buy at pretty well historic low rates. Bank of Canada's kept it where it's at, and the indications are, unless things change, they may have a couple of increases before the end of the year, but nobody knows. So let's go back to, we're 2026. 8 years ago, in 2018, if you can buy a property today that were 7 or 8 years ago, well, how old were you when you're 29 now? So you were what, 21? Well, could you buy a house when did you have the down payment? Did you have the position? Did you have your employment? No, but you have it now, and you can actually buy at the same price that you missed the opportunity because you were too young, you didn't have the job. So what's holding you back? I mean, look, I don't know if we've hit bottom yet as far as market goes, because all economists are giving different spins on this thing, but it's pretty close to, when somebody says I can pick up properties for 2019 prices or 2018 price, pre-pandemic prices, what are people waiting for? Because it's going to shift. And I don't know if it'll be 2027 Q1 or Q2, but it will shift. And I really believe that it'll shift and things are going to start coming on. And you see, the opportunity is huge for me. You've heard me say to our agents at Street City is, 2021, when the market was going crazy, you could get a listing and pretty well you'd have 30 offers on it or 20 offers, maybe not that many. Mm-hmm. And, you'd list it at X, and then offers would come in at X plus 100,000. And it's like, okay, it'll take a day. Well, instead of focusing on listing from a buyer's perspective, that's the same thing right now. It's just flip it over on its head. Buyers are in that position now where now they can take their time, they can find a property, they can do a proper home inspection, they can do their due diligence, they can bring mom and dad to take a look at it, they can catch their breath and sleep on it for a couple of days. I mean, it's the perfect opportunity for buyers that are in a position to buy, to get off the fence and not hold off to maybe if we're not bottom, it's another 1 or 2%. So in the big scheme of things, that's not going to be a big game changer. So I'm really optimistic about where things are going, and that's on the buyer side. Now, if you say, okay, well, wait a second, what does that mean for the sellers? Well, listen, the good thing about this market is buyers and sellers, homes are selling. Not at the rates that we were at before, but if somebody has to sell for whatever reason and they're staying in the market, then it's all relative. If they're selling at a lower price, they're buying at a lower price. If they're selling at a much higher price, if they're waiting to get $50,000 more because they think, hey, you know what, my neighbor in 2022 got $50,000 more than you're telling me today, well, guess what? If that happens for their house, then whatever they're replacing with is going to be relatively the same increase. If it's a 10% increase here, there'll be a 10% increase there. So you know what? Talk to a realtor that understands the dynamics of the market, and I know you do, and walk through it. Maybe timing is not right, or maybe timing is perfect right now for the buy side or the sell side. So I'm really optimistic about where things are going, depending on where you're at.
Yeah, I find, Costa, too, it's the bottom line, right? When I have clients saying, well, I think I'm going to hold off until the battery plant opens, for example, in St. Thomas, and values will be higher. And my question for them is, well, what are you going to do at that point? And when they say, well, I'm going to buy something, and well, you're buying in the same market, so the prices of those houses are going to be higher. So if it's your home that you're not comfortable with, and you feel like you either want to, upgrade, or if you want to downsize, this is just as good of time as any to do it, because you're buying and selling in the same market. And I had a client that bought during COVID, and they put $250,000 into renovations in their home, and we essentially sold it for $30,000 more than they paid. But they bought a house in Lake Margaret that would have sold for $1.2 million for $800,000. So they made up that loss.
But those are the real life scenarios and situations that that's where you need to sort of say, okay, contact a professional, get the guidance that you need, share those stories, because that's what helps to say, okay, now I have a better picture. Because it's not just data coming in off of a media release or a news story, a sensational story about what the market is doing. Contact a realtor, get in there. I know how knowledgeable you are. I know how you read all the stuff, but you analyze it. You do a deep dive. You drill down enough to say, okay, let's make sense of this and find out where they're heading to. So I totally agree with you, and I'm all in on that.
Now, I mean, you've got so much experience over the years as an agent, a broker. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen buyers make?
So, there's quite a few of them that buyers can make if they're not well informed, if they think they're going to go it alone. I mean, we're living in a DIY world, do it yourself kind of look. I'm going to do it on my own. Same with sellers. I'm going to try it on my own. I'm going to, I don't want to pay for the fee. So I think it's not just qualifying for a home. Here's the biggest one. It's factoring in the cost to carry that home. So it's factor in your property taxes, factor in upkeep, insurance. I mean, things are going up, right? The cost of, you don't want to be, oh, I got this home, but I'm cash poor, home rich, because if the market changes, you're got wiped out. So I think the biggest mistake is make sure you understand what the costs are, and have somebody explain it to you. I mean, you start with your realtor and say, here's what taxes are, insurance. I'm going to tell you a home like this and I know that you've done this before, and I know for a fact that you have. Get heating bills, electricity bills. Let's see what the lifestyle of these people are, and let's see what kind of costs are. What's the roof expectancy? What is the life expectancy of the major capital expenditures that have to be done, so that you're not buying a home and then within the next 12 months there's got to be a big capital expenditure. So number one is that, and I think it's making sure that what is your strategy, and in a market like this, right? What is your strategy? Are you looking to get in and get out in 2 years? Are you prepared to hold in 5 years? Are you going to hold in 10 years? I still believe, and I mean, I'm a firm believer that, historically and statistically, real estate has been where wealth has happened for the majority of Canadians. You know what? I've always said, if you look back the last 10 years, and I know people say, oh yeah, I invest in mutual funds. Well, you can't live in a mutual fund. At least you can live in a home. Even if the market turns for a couple of years, you'll still have something you can touch and feel and do all that stuff. So I think from a buyer's perspective, know what you're getting into, and make sure that you can sustain it. And nobody knows the future, but at least have an idea of what it's going to cost full on, and pad it a little bit more, not just to qualify. Because everybody gets excited, I've qualified, I'm pre-approved, and you jump in. And it's a matter of making sure they're well educated on the full picture, the full spectrum of home ownership.
Well, Costa, like a wise man once said, be the source of the source.
Yeah. Don't be the source. Don't be the source. When somebody says, what about this? Look, I don't know, but I'll get the right answer from the right person. So I'm not the source to give you the answer. I love that, Jeff. But I'll go to the source of the professional account, the CPA, the lawyer, the inspector, the engineer, and I'll get back to you with the right answer. I mean, to this day, sorry, I have to say, you know how we talked about this is a people business? I still say
Yeah.
98% people knowledge, 2% product knowledge. If you can connect with people and find out, what they want and really show that you got them and you built that trust and rapport, the product will sell itself. Because if it's not this, people would still ask me, so what is this? Is this like aluminum wiring? Like, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. What about this furnace? I'm not going to. Why don't we go through the entire house? Let's look at the property. If this checks off pretty well all the boxes that you think, then let's make a list because it'll be more than the wiring. Let's find out plumbing. Let's find out everything, roof. So, but let's be honest. If this house doesn't work for you, do we really care what the wiring is? So that's
Yeah.
where I think you go with this anyway.
Yeah, and I think right now what's really important is having a good mortgage broker. I think it's such a tricky market right now. People having to pass stress tests and having a clear understanding, like you said, of, yes, you're pre-approved for this much money, but do you want to live a comfortable lifestyle? And I think a mortgage broker is key, to give the buyers that information, especially young people, like first-time home buyers getting in the market, find a house they love, and they're pre-approved for that level, but are they going to be that comfortable when they get there?
How many times have you seen in your career already, and I know you have, where you're selling a house and you hear the story the listing agent may share with you about why these people have to sell, they overcommitted, and those are the mistakes that we have to make sure we protect our clients with. So when I say about the source, you're right. Yeah, and you have a good people as a realtor in your group when a consumer says, but it should start with you. The conversation should start with, hey, Jeff, and then even if they don't share it, say, you know what, here are the things, but I'm going to put you in touch with somebody that really knows this field. And I think that's where it starts with you. And you're right. You don't want to buy this perfect home, you got into it, and all of a sudden you can't afford to, like Gavin, take kids out deep sea fishing. You want to make sure you have a lifestyle that's pretty nice, right?
Yes, you do. You want to, yeah, you want to be comfortable for sure.
Yeah.
Now,
and don't edit that out, Gavin, if you're doing this.
he might. He might. For those of you that are watching that don't know, Gavin is he produces these for me. So, and
Yeah.
he's my marketing director and fantastic, and a local
Right on.
realtor.
Right
Yeah.
on.
So, what kind of role does the broker of record actually take at an office? I know I've been really fortunate with the brokers of record I've worked with. Bobby at our office is fantastic. So I know what the role is, but I'm wondering if you want to share, because you've done the role and you're doing the role now, kind of what kind of things you take on a daily basis.
It's a big spectrum of things. It's compliance is a big thing, operations, and you have, of course, we have leadership team and leadership in place, other management leaders. I don't like to use the word management; that's kind of so outdated. It's other leaders that take on the roles. Compliance is a big thing. Want to make sure that the brokerage and the agents that work within the brokerage are fully compliant with all the legislation and the regulations. Not only the Real Estate Council of Ontario, but there's federal legislation, there's provincial legislation, there's a landlord-tenant residential tenancies act. If you're dealing with rentals, pretty well have to be pretty savvy and have a really good understanding of this legislation. And so, it's a very rewarding position. And you're right, our current broker of record, Bobby Maroney, is doing an amazing job and very knowledgeable and always accessible. So that's a big thing: accessibility, knowledgeable, making sure they're compliant. And dealing with consumers. If there's a problem that arises, and again, problems happen. Maybe I always attribute issues with two things: either miscommunication or no communication. And I attribute that to everything in life: marital relationships, business partnerships. Either you didn't hear what I said properly, or you never called me back. You never caught. So, as a broker of record, we always have our open door policy. Look, we exist at the brokerage level to help consumers, buyers and sellers, get to where they need to go. Not to be an obstacle, get in the way of them selling a house or buying a house. So if there's miscommunication somewhere or something's gone sideways, then that's where we take the calls, the complaints, and we always get back to consumers, always try to resolve the issues to the best of our ability. And that's a big part of it. Again, it's having trust. I mean, the regulator wants to have trust in the profession. We at Street City want to ensure that trust is a level higher. Like if this is the standard for the bar for the profession, that's the kind of like the entry level bar. We strive to make sure that we, we're above that and making sure that our clients that we engage with are well protected.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one thing I talked to in week one with Candace Watson, who's a local lawyer, real estate lawyer in St. Thomas, is I think personally one of the most important parts on an agreement of purchase and sale for buyers and sellers is the Schedule A, where clauses are written up. Do you want to chat a little bit about kind of clauses and what kind of things you think people should understand before signing?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many clauses. I'm going to tell you one thing that we pride ourselves on at Street City is we probably have a library of customized clauses that are outside of the standard clauses that we use as professionals in the transacting of real estate. And I mean, the province of Ontario, the Ontario Real Estate Association, has standard clauses and standard forms, but it's not a one size fits all in every case. And so we pride ourselves on customizing it. So it starts with what are the needs and wants and needs and to protect the buyer or the seller, whoever we're representing. And then clauses, that Schedule A, other than the pre-printed section, which has got a lot of information and every agent should know what that means. When we used to transact, I didn't read all that stuff, but I would go over the clause, say, here's what this means and this is what this means. So the nice thing about the clauses is where you actually get to, is you're like an artist. I always think like realtors are like an artist. It's this blank canvas and we're going to put on what we want when we represent our clients. So of course, there's certain things that have to be put in there. Those are the standard ones about, hey, here's a deposit. It's $20,000, for example. On closing date, whatever that closing date is, because with the offer, there's 20, but we're going to close, I don't know, what are we, 2 months from now? Got to pay the balance to the seller. So there's a standard clause. Other than that, what do you need to do? You talk to your clients and you say, okay, we should put a financing condition in here to make sure that you're pre-qualified at the rate that you need so you fully understand what you're going to be paying. And with the mortgage specialist that I'm going to put you in charge with or in touch with, find out what your prepayment is. If there's going to be any penalty, do you want to go with a variable rate or a fixed rate? I mean, that's out of my, out of my ability as a realtor to give you that information, but I'm going to go to the source and make sure you're covered off and whatever you decide. And so there's a clause there for financing. And if you don't get the financing that you want to your satisfactory, basic to your satisfaction, then we're just going to stop the deal right here. Same thing with a home inspection or a property inspection. Let's find out. And if it's not a property inspection, here's where it gets customized. Maybe our client says, look, I'm really good with the financing stuff because I've got a plan B. I don't need to go get a mortgage. And as far as a home inspection goes, I don't want to scare the sellers because I really want to go and negotiate hard. And so maybe then that's where you talk to the realtor. And I know, Jeff, you've done this because you've customized a lot of the clauses. Maybe it's just, hey, there's one area that we're not sure of because it's kind of like winter and the central air is not working. Why don't we put in a condition specifically to make sure that when we buy the house and in the summer, when we want to turn on the air, that somehow we're protected because we can't check it right now in the winter. There's one example. Or about the pool or, the roof because we can't really tell right now or whatever the case. We just want to find out about the furnace. So there's a lot of, that's where the magic happens and the creativity happens. And I'm not saying creativity, I mean, talking about legal creativity. Talk to the buyer, talk to the seller. What is it that we need? Here's what my recommendation is. Obviously, this is always driven by the consumer, our client, but they're looking direction from us. And so I know that you do the same thing. You say, here's what I think we need to be concerned about. I would suggest this, and this. The client may say, I'm cool with everything that you said, but I don't need it. I'm good. I just want to get this done. And then as long as, they acknowledge in writing that we had the conversation, here's what we recommended, and they decided not to include it, that's, as we say, they're the boss. They direct us how you want to proceed. Does that make sense?
It does, for sure. And, I'm shocked, Costa, sometimes that, I'm selling a property with a pool in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
And I receive an offer and it does not include a condition that the pool will be in good working order by May the 4th.
I know.
Even if the closing is in January, I mean, you have to make sure that your buyers are
Are
protected.
protected. Yes,
Yeah.
and that's why I know that you specifically. I mean, I've seen. As part of the management leadership team. I've seen the clauses you put in there. You're right. Like I get that you're buying a house now in November, closing January. But how did you put? Well, you got to put a clause in there with making sure it's pretty clear that when this pool opens, that the seller's going to be responsible, that it's warranted and representing that it's in good working order, and then if it's not, within a period of time, blah blah blah. So anyway, you're 100. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, it's I find it I find it shocking actually when those things come out. Just do you see any changes coming in the future as far as regulation and policies go? I know you're kind of you're in the field a lot, so I'm wondering if there's anything that you think might be coming.
Yeah, I think there will be more tightening of regulations, which is a good thing. I think it's the regulator, the Real Estate Council of Ontario, has made it quite clear that they want to make sure that consumers, when they when they engage with a realtor or a registrant, that their protection is there, that they know what they're dealing with. So I think that they're going to tighten it even more. They're going to make it more consumer centric, focused, and that's a good thing because again, as we said earlier on, the true professionals are going to welcome that. Um, and I think it's going to be great for consumers overall. And I, not only on a regulatory perspective are things going to benefit the consumer. I also believe with technology and AI coming, and which is coming at us so fast, it's not a question of should I use Chat GPT? It's so much more than that right now. Having said that, that's where a realtor needs to sort of understand that even if they're not fully engaged in the AI tools, their clients will be. So you just have to make sure because they're still going to come to you. They're still if you're the recommended referral from maybe mom and dad said, oh, you got to use Costa or you got to use Jeff. They're going to come to you. So you should be at least have knowledgeable enough to say, okay, you brought this information. They're still going to want to know, decipher it for me. So I got a ton of stuff. It came at me so fast. But what is it not going to tell you? Like you're going to get information, whatever it is. I don't know. When you engage a realtor, do you know that the house here sold for this price? You've got that information, but do you know the reasons why? Do you know how long? Do you know? That's where an agent will come in and say, okay, let me give you let's drill down a couple more layers so that now you understand why this one went for here and why this one went for here and what and where yours will fit in. So that's the kind of stuff that's why I say that I really believe realtors will be at the center of the transaction. It may be in a different capacity, but what we bring to the table, I don't think technology will be able to replace that because it's not like making a bad decision on a poor hotel room. I mean, this is the biggest, this is the biggest investment. Yeah, that's right. So it's like, oh man, I spent an extra $30. I could have saved $30. Had it, it's not like that. It's like, I want to make sure that I speak to somebody that gets it. So anyway, I'm really optimistic about the role. I'm optimistic about giving a lot of power in the hands of the consumers. That's a good thing. And they'll engage with the true professionals that understand that.
So what are your closing thoughts? Like, what are your kind of biggest takeaways that you want to pass on to anybody that might be listening today?
If here's my big takeaway on the buying side, if you're in a position where you have some pretty solid employment, you're confident, and you're really on the fence, you've been looking for the last year and a half, 2 years, get in the game because it's almost the perfect conditions right now for you to buy. You get to pick and choose, you get to catch your breath, you get to get all the due diligence that you want to find out information on, and get a realtor that's going to really have your back and negotiate for you hard. And that doesn't mean that you're going to get every deal because I don't want anybody thinking, oh my God, this guy's saying that the market's soft, you're going to get it. No, negotiating hard means because you got to look at. Here's what it means. Maybe there's a fair market price, and I'm going to pick a number that should be $650 on a house, $650 to $675. And you know what? Somebody lists a property, they're still thinking 20, 22, 23 because their neighbor got that, and they're going to list it at $829.9. And eventually, time will, because you can't fake the market out. It doesn't matter what price you put on there. Buyers are going to be looking at the information. They're going to engage a realtor, and they're going to find out. So my point is, it may end up selling 6 months, 8 months later for $675 where it should have been. And somebody may perceive, oh my God, well, you know what, they got 120,000 off the price. And then the next house, the next sale could have been listed at 679.9, and they got 678 or whatever the number. You have to know the background information on this. So I think engage a realtor. The timing is perfect. If you've got employment and you feel confident and you've been looking for a while, it's the time. Now's the time. On the selling side, same thing. If you have to sell, great. Then engage a realtor. If you have that fulsome discussion as to where my plans are, why I have to sell, what my motivation is, how do I get out of this? Be realistic. The market is not going to lie. The market screams at us every day when a listing goes on the market. It's either, and what I mean by that, you put a price out there and it gets live on Realtor.ca and on MLS. If nobody shows it or sees it or requests to see it in the first 10 days, then the market is talking to us, it's screaming at us. It's basically saying, I think you've missed the mark. If we blow it as a realtor, and I don't think many times we do, but let's say we do, that we've underpriced it, then you know what's going to happen? You're going to have like 30 showings. You're going to have multiple offers. Even in this market, there's many, many situations where there are multiple offers, and the market's going to say, hey, listen, I think you underpriced it at 629.9, and here's an offer for 640 and 635 and 650. So listen,
market
sales will happen.
Value.
Exactly. So I think that those are my words. But in all cases, look, consumers want a trusted advisor to give them guidance. We'll always have a role in navigating and making sure things make sense of what data is out there and negotiating hard on their behalf. And those are the things that I think are always going to keep the realtor valuable. When you got the right person that cares about their client, is knowledgeable, aligns themselves with a brokerage that is experienced in this to help navigate them. And that's one thing. It doesn't matter if you're new to the industry, new to the profession or not, they're not going to be practicing on their client. If they align themselves with a brokerage that gets it, I don't care if you're 3 months in the business, they're not going to be practicing on those clients because we work as a team and they have the ability to reach out to the team at leadership and make sure that, and I know that you've helped and mentor young agents as well. So those are my closing thoughts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Costa. Before I let you go, I just wanted to say that I'm starting something new. Each week, I am going to be featuring a small business in Elgin County. Today, we're going to highlight a great local spot called Streamliners. It's at 767 Talbot Street in St. Thomas. It's a great place, little cafe, go for a variety of coffees, baked goods in the mornings. Fantastic spot to stop and catch up with friends. I love to support local businesses. It's what makes our community what it is. So be sure to try and check them out. And let's get to closing. Thanks so much, Costa.
Thank you, Jeff.